let's create this art print using watercolors. This will be really fun, a great practice, but then also you will end up with something that is really cute that maybe you'll want to put up in your house. So what you will need is the downloadable file. Now you can print this directly onto watercolor paper if your printer will take it. If not, I have another tip for you, but you want to make sure that you don't just print this on printer paper and then start painting on it. Watercolors really don't like this kind of paper because it's just way too absorbent. You'll find that it just really buckles and you're not gonna get that beautiful watercolor effect. And so you always want to be using watercolor paper. Now I'm using this Strathmore cold press, 140 pound. This one is $11.49 from Hobby Lobby, so it's not very expensive, and it's just a really great product. The cold press means that it's got that texture to it, so I always like to stick with a cold press paper. And then your downloadable template, so go ahead and print that. You'll want watercolors, and you can use there's a couple of different types. You can use the tubes if you want to, and you just squeeze those out into a palette. I like to let them dry overnight before using them. That way they're not quite so liquid and you can add water and just make them work a little bit better for you. So tubes, if you want them, they are definitely more expensive. So if what you have at home is a watercolor little pan tray like this, go ahead and use it. Now, your kids might have this at home. You might want to just take one step up from that. So this one is not necessarily the kid version. This one is Praying Professional. So the kid version is maybe like $5. This one is going to be more like $10 or $15. But it's definitely worth it. The colors will just be much more saturated and a little truer. So you want watercolors, you need your watercolor paper, and then you need some brushes. Now, part of your kid's watercolor paintbrush looks like this Crayola one. Don't use this. It does not have a very good tip to it, and so it's going to be really hard to get a good control. So make sure you have something a little bit better than this. I like these round brushes. So this one came in a set. This is a size 12, a 6, and a 1. And really, I feel like you could kind of get by with just those 3 brushes. If you want to add another, sometimes I use the super big one. That's a size 16. So just go to the craft store and you should be able to find a round brush. The great thing about these is that they do have kind of a fine tip so that when you're doing lettering or more fine details, you can use this brush. So what we need to do first is to transfer our little template onto our watercolor paper. So again, you can print it from your printer onto watercolor paper, or the other step, which is what I'm going to do, is if I just put this behind my watercolor paper, now I won't be able to see it just straight on the desk, but if I hold it up to a window, I should be able to see through enough where I can get kind of a faint outline of it. I'm going to use really light pencil just so that the watercolor kind of can do its thing without the pencil marks there. And so I'm going to step away for just a second and transfer my little bird and saying onto this watercolor paper. Okay, so my little sketch is transferred over to my paper so I can get rid of this one. And now it's time to start painting. So what we need to do if you're using like a tray of kind of cake watercolors, I'm gonna use this. What I want to do first is add water to them. So if you are new to watercolor, or if you're not, you'll know that the key is lots and lots of water. So I like to just drip it in here to begin with, just to get these a little bit moistened. Okay, so that is ready to go. You wanna make sure you have a paper towel. This is great just for wiping your brush off, and a jar of clean water. Doesn't matter if it's warm water or cold water, it's fine, just tap water. Okay, so we're gonna start with the bird, and you can really choose whatever color you really wanna do it. I think I'm just gonna make mine like a little brown sparrow. So I'm gonna use my brown. As you can see, my palette is super messy, and that's kind of how I like to do it. I like to mix it all around, just straight onto here. So don't be afraid to use all the little areas of your palette. So lots of water, and I'm gonna make mine, I'm gonna add a little bit of black to mine just to make it kind of a grayer brown. And I'm gonna start up here on his head and just come around. Now, part of watercolor that I love is when everything isn't just all one solid color. So just kind of manipulate your brush and get it to move around, leaving some little cracks if you want to. So I want this part of him to be a little bit darker. And so by just adding a little bit more water, I can use my paint to kind of move it around. Okay, I think for his belly, I want it to have a little bit of yellow in it. So I'm gonna take some yellow and a little bit of brown, kind of a beigey color maybe. And lots of water. And just give him kind of a yellow. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring some more brown in here. So this is his wing, so I kind of want some shadow here. Now, a lot of times when I'm watercoloring, I do my first layer and then I keep adding other layers. So for this one, it will kind of be the same thing. Like I don't necessarily need it all to happen just in one layer. I'm gonna kind of add that base layer and then we can always go over and make it darker and darker. So the other thing about watercolor is when it's wet, if you put more color on top of it, it's just gonna really spread, which is beautiful if that's the effect that you're going for. But if I wanted to add some shadow right in here, this is still wet, so it's gonna spread a little bit more than what I want it to. So I'm gonna wait and let all of this area dry before I add another layer to it. And I'm gonna move, I can do his beak or his feet or the lettering while this is all drying. So I think I'm gonna do his beak real quick. And that is just gonna be black. Now, when you're doing yours, you can definitely do any color that you want in here. I'm excited to see what you create, if it's a little bluebird or anything that you want it to be. So do you see how that watercolor is kind of spreading out? It doesn't really bother me all that much. I might kind of go back and clean that up in just a little bit, so that it doesn't go too far. So if you want to make it kind of stop, you just have to get that dried up a little bit. Use your paper towel. And you can also come in, if you just tear a little piece off of your paper towel, you can use that just to kind of stop the paint. So watercolor is super forgiving. Here we go. And I can go back over and I'll fix that in just a little bit. So it's not a big deal. Okay, I'm gonna switch to my little brush. What do I wanna use? I think I'm gonna use actually I'll use this 6 brush, and I'm gonna do his feet in kind of again, a brownish yellow color. Okay, well, all of that is drying. Now I can go over here and do my lettering. So a lot of times for lettering, I like to use a really fine brush. So this one is a 1, and I think you just get a little bit more precise detail when you're using this little brush. So I'm gonna do this in a blue. I think I want like almost be like a tealy navy blue color. So I'm gonna take some green, some blue, and maybe a little bit of brown. When I'm using this paint palette, I add brown almost every time I mix a color, just to kind of, I don't know, muddy up the color a little bit, make it a little less primary. That seems to be a tone that I like a little bit better. Okay, so there's my blue. And again, you can do this however you want. If you want kind of a gradation, you can start with some blues and then allow your paints to kind of blend into each other. So the only thing you want to make sure of is that I still have kind of a wet bird, so I don't want to drag my wrist across it. So you can either let it dry or just try to keep your wrist up so that you're not messing up your cute little bird. You know what, mine is still pretty wet, so I'm gonna give it just a second and I'll be right back. Okay, I got started on the lettering now that I'm a little drier over here. So I'm just gonna load up my paintbrush and trace over those letters. Now, if you are familiar with my fake calligraphy, if you want your downstrokes to be a little thicker so that it looks a little more like calligraphy, you're just gonna go a little thicker down on the downstrokes and lighter on those upstrokes. So just keep going and trace those letters. Okay, so there's my letters. Now I get to add more layers to my little bird. So right now it's super light and I wanna just make sure it has a lot of dimension, which is often how I do watercolors. I like to add layer and layer and layer. So once it's like mostly dry to the touch, then as you add your next layers, it's not going to blend quite as much. It will just kind of sit up on top of your paper, which gives it kind of that layered textured look. So I'm gonna add a little bit more here. Just kind of keep going around the bird, adding more details, more dimension. Okay, right under its wing, I want to add a little bit of shadow. So I'm going to take kind of my darker brown and try to get even like a little gray. Try to get a little bit of a shadow in there. Okay, and then this needs, again, to dry. So I'm gonna let it sit for a few minutes and then kind of see where else I want to add a little bit more to. Okay, his little body is mostly dry, but I'm going to add a couple more. I want his wing to stick out a little bit here. So I'm gonna just make it do that. And then I'm going to put some detail on his eye and let's see, also his little feet. So I'm going to get just my little skinny brush. I'm gonna give him a black eye, but I do want him to have like a little highlight in his eye. So I'm not gonna paint him solid. So just get some black on my brush and I will outline the circle of where the eye is. But then I want there to be like a little highlight kind of over here in the corner. So I'm gonna save a little spot there of white. There we go. And that makes it super cute. Okay, and then on his feet, I'm gonna put like stripes. I don't know, it seems like it would be cute. So I'm gonna take some brown, kind of to show like, I don't know, you know how bird feet kind of have scales. I don't know if scales is the right word. I don't know what they have, but I'm gonna put some little stripes on his feet. All right, he is just about done. If you want to add any more, I might try to get one more little layer of color kind of in here. And then you can add any other, like if you wanted to put some little grass down here or flowers, if you want him to be holding a branch, maybe it's a girl and she's got a bow. So whatever you want to do with your little bird, I hope that this is a super fun project and I can't wait to see how yours turns out. So will you share them with me? If you create this, will you either tag me on Instagram at Jones Design Company, or you can send me an email with like an image of it or something, which would be really cute. So I hope you have fun with this project. Feel free to embellish it however you want.